I was finishing up a research report in my Denver office when my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it, too caught up in my work to deal with distractions, but something made me glance at the screen. The name, Liam, flashed across it. My younger brother. We hadn't talked much in the past few years. He had always been chasing some new business venture, while I buried myself in my research, choosing to stay away from the never-ending chaos of our family matters. But something in my gut told me to answer. I barely had time to say his name before he spoke, his voice too casual, too smug. Hey, Natalie. Just thought I should let you know, I sold the farm. For a moment, my mind refused to process the words. You what? Grandpa's farm. Liam repeated, as if he were talking about a used car, not the place where we had spent every summer of our childhood, the land our grandfather had built with his own hands. Got $3 million for it. Good deal, huh? My grip on the phone tightened. You sold it? Without even talking to me? Liam sighed, exasperated. Come on, Natalie. You haven't set foot on that land in years. It was just sitting there, collecting dust. I figured it was time to cash out. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. You had no right, Liam. He laughed, a sharp, careless sound. Actually, I did. Grandpa made me the executor. That means I get to make the calls. I went cold. Where's the money? A pause. Then a chuckle. I spend it. My breath caught. What do you mean, you spend it? Liam's tone was maddeningly relaxed. Olivia's business needed a boost. She had this amazing investment opportunity, but she needed funds fast. I helped her out. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. You sold our grandfather's farm for half its real value, and blew all the money on Olivia's business? Liam scoffed. She needed it more than you. Come on, Nat. You've got your big fancy research projects. What do you care about some old farmland? I ended the call without another word. I didn't trust myself to speak. Within an hour, I had canceled my meetings, packed a bag, and booked the next flight to Texas. The plane ride was a blur of anger and disbelief. I couldn't stop replaying the conversation in my head. How could Liam do this? He had always been reckless, but this was different. This was theft. But there was something else gnawing at me, something that wouldn't let me sit still. Grandfather Henry wasn't a fool. He had built that farm from nothing, turning barren land into one of the most valuable estates in Texas. He had worked tirelessly for decades to preserve it, not just for himself, but for us. Had he really left it so unprotected? By the time I landed in Austin, my anger had sharpened into something more dangerous: determination. Liam thought he had won. He had no idea what was coming. I drove straight to the farm. The sight of it hit me like a punch to the gut. The house stood in the middle of the vast land, its wraparound porch weathered but still sturdy. The fences were in disrepair, the fields overgrown. But underneath the neglect, it was still Grandpa's farm. I could still see the traces of what it had been, what it could be again. And now it was gone. Sold. Stolen. I stepped out of the car, my boots crunching against the gravel. A flood of memories threatened to surface, but I pushed them down. I wasn't here to reminisce. I was here to fix this. I had one stop to make before confronting Liam. Walter Bennett's office was in downtown Dallas, a sleek high-rise that seemed worlds away from the dusty farmland. He looked up from his desk as I entered, his sharp eyes filled with something close to expectation. I was wondering when you'd show up, Natalie. I didn't waste time. Liam sold the farm without my consent. He says he had the right. Walter sighed, tapping his fingers against a thick folder on his desk. Yes. I received the notice yesterday. My stomach twisted. So that's it? He wins? Walter gave a small, knowing smile. That depends. He slid the folder toward me. Have you read your grandfather's final estate documents? A strange feeling stirred in my chest. I had read the will. It left everything to both of us, but Liam had been named executor. Walter nodded, as if reading my mind. That's true. But your grandfather was a very careful man. I hesitated before opening the folder. The first page immediately caught my eye. Character clause? I read aloud. Walter's expression turned serious. Henry knew Liam's weaknesses. He loved him, but he didn't trust him with the farm. So he added a safeguard. My heart pounded. What kind of safeguard? Walter leaned forward. If either of you attempted to sell the farm without the other's agreement, ownership would immediately and irrevocably transfer to the wrong party. I blinked, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. Are you saying? Walter nodded. Yes. The sale is void. The farm is yours, Natalie. A rush of relief and shock washed over me. I gripped the edges of the document as the reality sank in. Grandfather had seen this coming. He had known Liam would try something like this. And he had planned for it. I exhaled sharply. Liam doesn't know about this, does he? Walter shook his head. No. And I'd advise not telling him until we call a legal meeting. I sat back, trying to process it all. Liam thought he had won. Tomorrow, he would learn the truth. He had no idea what was coming. The drive back to the farmhouse was long and silent, the road stretching endlessly under the dim glow of the streetlights. The weight of what I had just learned pressed against my chest. Liam had lost before he even knew the fight had started. The sale was void. The farm was mine. And yet I wasn't celebrating. Instead, memories flooded my mind. I could still hear Grandfather Henry's voice, clear and strong, as he stood on the farmhouse porch, staring out over the land he had spent decades nurturing. A farm isn't just land, Natalie. It's blood, sweat, and patience. It's knowing when to hold on and when to let go. And most importantly, it's knowing who to trust with it. I had been 17 then, standing beside him with dirt on my jeans and blisters on my hands from a full day of work. I had loved the farm, even when I was too stubborn to admit it. Liam had been different. Why do we have to do this, Grandpa? He had complained, wiping the sweat from his forehead. We have machines for this kind of work now. There are smarter ways to make money. Grandfather had only shaken his head. Money doesn't mean anything if you don't respect what it comes from, Liam. That conversation had stuck with me. Liam had never understood. He had never cared about the farm, only about what he could gain from it. And now, years later, he had finally cashed out, or at least he thought he had. When I pulled up to the farmhouse, the porch light was on. Liam was already there, leaning casually against his sleek black SUV, looking smug. He had always carried himself with a reckless kind of arrogance, but tonight, there was an extra edge to it. Olivia wasn't with him this time, just him, standing alone in the dim light. He grinned when he saw me step out of the car. Didn't think you'd actually come back, he said, stretching his arms. Gotta admit, I was surprised you even cared. I didn't react. Inside. Now. Liam scoffed but followed me up the creaking wooden steps. The house smelled the same, dusty wood, aged paper, and the faintest trace of Grandfather's old cologne. But it felt emptier. I shut the door behind us, and for a moment, we just stood there, silent. Then I turned to face him. How could you do this? Liam rolled his eyes. Oh, here we go. He slumped into the old armchair like he owned the place. Natalie, the farm was just sitting there. You never wanted it, and I needed the money. What's the big deal? The big deal? I repeated, my voice deadly calm. You sold Grandfather's entire life's work, for $3 million. And then you wasted every penny. Liam's smirk faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. It wasn't a waste. Olivia's business. I don't give a damn about Olivia's business. Liam's expression darkened. Of course you don't, he muttered. You've always thought you were better than me, haven't you? I exhaled sharply, forcing myself to stay composed. This isn't about me, Liam. This is about the fact that you had no right. No right to sell, no right to make decisions about something that wasn't just yours. He scoffed. I was the executor. I had every right. I leaned forward, my voice quiet but firm. No, you didn't. For the first time, Liam hesitated. I watched him closely as I pulled out the legal document Walter had given me. I set it on the coffee table between us. Read it. Liam frowned but picked it up. His eyes moved across the page. His smirk slowly faded. His fingers tightened around the paper. Then he looked up at me, face pale. What the hell is this? The amendment Grandfather added before he died, I said, my voice steady. It states that if either of us sold the farm without the other's agreement, ownership would automatically transfer to the wrong party. I let that sink in. So, Liam, the moment you signed that sale contract? I leaned back. You lost everything. The farm belongs to me now. The silence was deafening. Liam's hands shook slightly as he set the document down. No, he said, shaking his head. This can't be real. Grandpa wouldn't do this to me. I crossed my arms. Grandfather knew you. He knew you'd try something like this. Liam stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something more desperate. This is a setup, he snapped. You think you're gonna take everything from me? You think you can just waltz in here and undo everything? I met his glare head on. I didn't take it from you, Liam. You threw it away. He was breathing heavily now, his fists clenched. Then give me back my money. I almost laughed. Your money? Liam, that wasn't your money to begin with. His face contorted with rage. Damn it, Natalie. I needed that money. You have no idea what. Oh, I know exactly what you did. I pulled out another file and tossed it onto the table. Go ahead. Open it. Liam hesitated. Then, cautiously, he flipped it open. His face turned sheet white. What? I crossed my arms. It's a record of every transaction you made from the estate's accounts, including the $750,000 you took from grandfather's other funds. Liam's lips parted, but no words came out. I continued, my voice cold. If I take this to court, you won't just lose the farm, you'll be charged with fraud. The anger drained from Liam's face. He stumbled back, running a shaky hand through his hair. This is bad, he whispered. This is really bad. I watched him carefully. It is. But I'm giving you a choice. He looked up sharply. What choice? I inhaled deeply. You sign an official admission of wrongdoing, remove yourself from the estate completely, and agree to financial counseling. If you do that, I won't take this to court. Liam's jaw tightened. And if I don't? I didn't blink. Then I'll file a legal claim against you, which will trigger a full audit. If that happens, you're looking at possible prison time. A long, heavy silence. Liam's eyes darted between me, the documents, and the empty room around us. For the first time, I saw something in him I hadn't seen in years. Fear. He swallowed hard. You'd really do that? You gave me no choice. He let out a slow, shaky breath. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. Fine. He slumped into the chair, exhausted. I'll sign. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was over. At least I thought it was. That night, after Liam left, I stood on the farmhouse porch, staring out at the land under the moonlight. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt uneasy. Because one thing still didn't add up. Liam was reckless, but he wasn't stupid. He had to know grandfather would have planned for this. So why had he gone through with it anyway? And more importantly, what was he hiding? The morning air was thick with tension as I stepped into Walter Bennett's office. The room smelled of polished wood and old books, the kind of place where serious matters were handled behind closed doors. Walter was already seated behind his mahogany desk, flipping through a thick stack of papers with the same calm efficiency he always had. But there was something different in his expression today, a quiet knowing, as if he had anticipated everything that had happened. I took a seat across from him, exhaling slowly. Liam knows now. Walter didn't look surprised. And how did he take it? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Not well. Walter nodded. That was expected. He slid a document across the desk toward me. You did the right thing, Natalie. But we're not done yet. I frowned, picking up the paper. The legal jargon blurred in my vision for a moment before I focused on the bolded section at the bottom. Fraudulent conveyance. I read aloud, my stomach tightening. Walter steepled his fingers. Yes. That's what we need to talk about next. Fraudulent conveyance. A legal term that essentially meant Liam's sale of the farm wasn't just invalid, it was illegal. Walter leaned forward. Natalie, your brother didn't just sell the farm. He lied in his filings, manipulated legal documents, and concealed the nature of the sale. That puts him in dangerous territory. I swallowed hard. So what does that mean, exactly? Walter sighed. It means that not only is the farm still legally yours, but we also have grounds to pursue charges against Liam for financial misconduct. I gripped the paper tighter. I had known Liam had screwed up, but this? This wasn't just recklessness. This was criminal. What happens if we press charges? I asked. Walter didn't hesitate. He could be looking at jail time, depending on how the court sees it. I sat back, my mind racing. I had wanted justice. I had wanted to take back what was mine. But prison? Was I really willing to go that far? I could still see Liam's face from last night, the fear in his eyes when he realized he had lost. The way his hands had trembled when he signed away his rights to the estate. For all his arrogance, he had never expected to lose control like this. He had never expected to lose everything. I left Walter's office deep in thought, my footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. I needed answers. And there was only one person who could give them to me. Liam didn't answer my call. So I went to him. His apartment in downtown Austin was a high-rise, flashy and modern, the kind of place someone bought when they wanted to show off wealth. But now, standing outside the door, I wondered just how much of that wealth was even real. I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Liam. Open the door. Silence. I was about to knock a third time when the door finally cracked open. Liam stood there, looking nothing like the smug brother I had faced the night before. His usual sharp suit was gone, replaced by a wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The place was a mess, half-packed boxes, Empty bottles on the kitchen counter. He was already preparing to run. I turned to face him. You were planning to leave, weren't you? Liam didn't deny it. He just leaned against the counter, rubbing his face. Natalie, what do you want? I want the truth. He let out a tired laugh. You already got the truth. The farm's yours. You won. Congratulations. I crossed my arms. That's not what I'm talking about, and you know it. His jaw tightened. Why did you really sell the farm? Liam didn't answer. I stepped closer. You're not just broke, are you? There's more to this. A muscle in his jaw twitched. I pressed harder. Walter found the fraud charges, Liam. You didn't just sell the farm illegally, you falsified documents. Liam's eyes flickered with something dangerously close to panic. I didn't. Stop lying to me. My voice cracked through the apartment like a whip. I'm done playing games. Tell me what the hell is going on, or I swear to God, I'll walk out of here and let Walter take this straight to court. Liam exhaled shakily. He raked a hand through his already messy hair and finally, he spoke. I owe money, Natalie. A cold feeling settled in my gut. A lot of money. I clenched my fists. To who? Liam swallowed hard. Investors. The wrong kind. I stared at him. You mean criminals? He looked away. Liam, what did you do? He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. I was trying to fix things, okay? I borrowed money, just a little at first. But the deal fell through, and suddenly, I owed more than I could ever pay back. I thought if I sold the farm, I could make it right. He ran a hand down his face. But Olivia took most of it and ran. I should have seen it coming. Olivia had never been in this for Liam. She had used him, used his desperation, his need to prove himself. And now? Now he was trapped. I took a deep breath. How much do you owe? Liam hesitated before answering. $1 million. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just about the farm anymore. This was about survival. Walter's voice was unreadable when I called him later that night. I need to know my options, I said. He didn't ask why. Liam's situation is dire, Walter said carefully. But you still have the upper hand. If he's in this deep, we may be able to negotiate a deal that keeps him out of prison, while ensuring he's no longer a liability. I gripped my phone tighter. How? Walter sighed. We can settle the fraud claim outside of court. But in exchange, Liam must give up all financial control, permanently. No more rights to the estate, no more access to funds. He signs everything over to you. I exhaled. And the people he owes? Walter hesitated. That's something Liam will have to deal with on his own. I met Liam at the farmhouse the next morning. The golden light of dawn cast long shadows over the land, the place that had once belonged to both of us. I placed the papers on the hood of my car. Sign them. Liam's face was unreadable as he skimmed the documents. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. When he picked up the pen, his hand only shook slightly. He signed his name. When he looked up at me, there was no arrogance left. Just exhaustion. What now? He asked quietly. I met his gaze. Now you figure out how to fix the mess you made. And with that, the last tie between us was officially severed. The farmhouse was eerily quiet after Liam left. I stood on the porch, gripping the railing, watching his car disappear down the long dirt road. For the first time in weeks, my mind wasn't consumed by anger or disbelief. Instead, there was something else. A deep, unsettling silence. Because despite everything, this didn't feel like a victory. I had taken back what was rightfully mine. I had the farm, the estate, the legal authority to make every decision from here on out. Liam was out, permanently. And yet a nagging thought wouldn't leave my mind. Had I really won? Because something told me that Liam hadn't been the only enemy in this fight. I spent the next few days combing through every document Walter had sent me. Every sale record. Every bank statement. Every financial move Liam had made as executor of the estate. And that was when I found it. A discrepancy. A gap in the records. $1.2 million. It wasn't just the money Liam had lost to Olivia's so-called business. It was more than that. The transactions were hidden beneath layers of legal jargon, but they all led back to the same name. Sovereign Holdings. I didn't recognize it. But someone would. Walter, what the hell is Sovereign Holdings? I had called him the moment I found it, pacing the farmhouse kitchen, my pulse racing. There was a pause on the other end of the line before Walter finally spoke. Where did you see that name? Liam's financial records. I exhaled sharply. There are multiple payments, all funneled through different accounts, all leading back to Sovereign Holdings. What is it? Another long pause. Then Walter sighed. It's a shell company, Natalie. My stomach dropped. For what? For money laundering. The words hit like a punch. I gripped the phone tighter. You're telling me Liam was involved in money laundering? Walter's voice was grim. Not just involved. If these records are accurate, then Sovereign Holdings was using the farm's estate funds to move illegal money under the radar. And Liam was either complicit, or too stupid to realize what he was part of. I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted. This wasn't just Liam's screw-up. This was something bigger. Something more dangerous. I drove into town the next morning, my head spinning with everything I had learned. I needed more information. And there was one person in town who knew everything about local money and real estate. Charles Whitaker. He was a banker, an old friend of my grandfather's who had seen every major financial deal in Texas pass through his hands at some point. If Sovereign Holdings had its claws in the estate, he would know. The Whitaker Bank building was old, but well kept, the kind of place where money moved quietly, away from prying eyes. Charles was already waiting for me when I walked in, seated behind his massive oak desk. He smiled, but his expression was guarded. Natalie Carter. Haven't seen you in years. I sat down across from him. I wish this was a social visit, Charles. His smile faded. You found something. I nodded. Sovereign Holdings. Tell me what you know. Charles let out a slow breath. I was hoping you wouldn't ask. Why? He studied me for a long moment before finally answering. Because, Natalie, Sovereign Holdings isn't just a company. He leaned forward. It's a front for the Salvatore Group. The Salvatore Group. The name sent an immediate chill down my spine. I had heard it before, whispered in hushed tones in backroom deals, in news articles about financial crimes that never quite made it to court. They weren't just a business. They were a crime syndicate. And somehow, Liam had gotten in bed with them. I gripped the edge of Charles's desk. Tell me everything. Charles sighed. The Salvatore Group moves money through legitimate businesses. Real estate, agriculture, construction, anything that lets them turn dirty money into clean investments. He tapped his fingers against the desk. Your grandfather's farm? It was prime real estate. Large land value, easy to shift around assets. But Henry never sold. He never let them in. My chest tightened. But Liam did. Charles nodded grimly. Yes. And now that the sale has been voided, they're going to come looking for their money. I left the bank in a daze. This was so much bigger than Liam's stupidity. This was organized crime. And I had just stolen back a multimillion-dollar piece of land that the Salvatore Group had been counting on. Which meant I was now in their way. I barely made it back to the farmhouse before my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated for half a second before answering. Natalie Carter. A low, smooth voice came through the line. Miss Carter. I hear congratulations are in order. I stiffened. Who is this? A chuckle. A friend of your brother's. We had a deal, you see. And now, we seem to have a problem. My pulse pounded. If you're looking for Liam, he has nothing left to give you. The voice didn't waver. Oh, I know. That's why I'm calling you. I exhaled sharply. I'm not paying his debts. A pause. Oh, I don't want your money, Miss Carter. I want my property. Ice crawled down my spine. The farm was never yours to begin with. And yet, we had an arrangement. And now you've made things complicated. I swallowed hard. What do you want? A long silence. Then, in a voice as smooth as silk. A meeting. I sat in my truck for a long time after hanging up. I knew what this was. It was a threat. A warning. The Salvatore Group didn't care about Liam anymore. They had moved on to me. And I had two choices. I could sell the farm, hand it over to them, cut my losses, walk away. Or I could fight. I looked out at the land, at the fields my grandfather had spent his life tending, at the house that had sheltered generations of our family. I thought about the sacrifices he had made to keep this place safe. And I made my decision. I wasn't running. I was going to fight. No matter what it took. The meeting was set for midnight. I had chosen the location, a deserted stretch of land just outside the farm, where the dirt roads met the vast emptiness of Texas fields. If things went south, I wanted the advantage of knowing the terrain. Walter had strongly advised against going alone. These people aren't businessmen, Natalie. They don't negotiate. They make demands. But this wasn't just about negotiation anymore. This was about taking back control. The black SUVs arrived exactly on time, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Four men stepped out, dressed in sharp suits that contrasted with the rugged landscape. They moved with the calm, predatory confidence of men who had been in control for far too long. And then, he emerged. The voice from the phone call. A man in his late 40s, tall, lean, with slicked back silver hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He was the kind of man who walked into a room and everyone noticed. He adjusted his cufflinks before stepping toward me, his movements deliberate, measured. "Miss Carter." His voice was smooth, practiced. "Dangerous. You've made things very inconvenient for us." I didn't flinch. "I'm not responsible for your bad investments." He chuckled. "No. But your brother was. And since you've so graciously taken his place, well, let's just say we now have unfinished business." I crossed my arms. "If you're here to threaten me, save your breath. I don't scare easily." His smile widened. "Oh, Miss Carter. I'm not here to threaten you." His eyes darkened. "I'm here to own you." One of his men pulled out a document. "A contract. Sell us the farm," the man said simply. $4 million. Clean deal. No trouble." I didn't even look at it. "Not interested." The man sighed, as if I were an ungrateful child refusing a generous gift. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I stepped forward. "No. You made this hard the second you tried to launder money through my family's land." For the first time, the man's smile faltered. Just slightly. But I saw it. I pressed harder. "I know about Sovereign Holdings." His jaw tightened. "I know about the missing money." A beat of silence. Then his smile returned, colder this time. "You're playing a very dangerous game, Miss Carter." I held his gaze. "So are you." I pulled my own folder from my jacket. His eyes flicked to it, curiosity flickering across his face. I flipped it open, revealing the neatly stacked evidence. Bank records. Wire transfers. Documents that tied Sovereign Holdings directly to the farm. To him. I could see it now, the flicker of something in his eyes. "What is this?" he asked, his voice still calm, but I could hear the sharp edge behind it. "Proof." I held up a single page. "This document shows an illegal transfer of funds under your name." I took a step closer. "If anything happens to me, Walter Bennett has instructions to hand this to the federal authorities." The air grew thicker. The men behind him shifted slightly, exchanging quick, silent glances. The silver-haired man regarded me carefully. Then, he laughed. A slow, controlled laugh. "Clever girl." He took a step back, adjusting his suit. "You think you can blackmail me?" "No." I smiled. "I think I already have." The man's expression darkened. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." His voice was quieter now, more dangerous. "People like you, they don't win against people like me." I didn't blink. "Then I guess you're in for a surprise." A long silence. Then, he nodded. "Very well." He gestured to his men. "Let's go." I didn't move as they climbed back into their SUVs. The engines roared to life. Then, just before the car doors shut, the man gave me one last look. "Enjoy your victory, Miss Carter. While it lasts." And then, they were gone. I stood in the silence, my heart pounding. It was over. For now. I knew men like that never truly backed down. But I had bought time. And sometimes time was all you needed to turn the tide. 1 week later, the farm was finally mine. Legally. Financially. Completely. I spent the first morning walking the land, breathing in the crisp Texas air, letting myself finally, feel the weight of everything that had happened. It wasn't just land. It was legacy. It was home. And I was going to protect it. The knock on my door came just after sunset. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Liam. He looked different. No suit. No arrogance. Just a man who had lost everything. "I heard about what happened," he said quietly. "How you handled it." I studied him. "And?" He hesitated. "I was wrong." I leaned against the doorframe. "Yeah. You were." A long pause. Then he exhaled. "I want to help." I raised an eyebrow. "Help? With what?" He gestured vaguely at the land. "Fixing things." I let that sink in. For so long, I had seen Liam as nothing more than a screw-up. Someone who only took. But now he was asking to give something back. I considered it. Then I stepped aside. "If you're serious, get to work." Liam nodded once. Then, he stepped inside. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe, it was a second chance. For both of us. Life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect them, often in ways we never imagined. The story of Natalie and Liam is not just about betrayal, legal battles, or reclaiming lost inheritance. It is about the deeper, often painful truths that define human nature, responsibility, and redemption. At its core, this story offers profound lessons about trust, family, ambition, consequences, and ultimately, the ability to rebuild from ruin. One of the most striking lessons from this story is that trust is not given, it is earned, and once broken, it is nearly impossible to restore. Natalie and Liam grew up in the same household, shared the same childhood memories, and were raised by the same guiding figure, their grandfather, Henry. But despite these shared experiences, their paths diverged drastically. Natalie pursued knowledge, discipline, and stability, while Liam sought shortcuts to success, believing that quick money and high-risk investments could secure his future. Their grandfather must have recognized this difference early on, which is why he set legal safeguards to protect the farm. He loved both his grandchildren, but love does not equate to blind trust. In life, we often assume that family bonds automatically ensure loyalty and fairness, but this story reminds us that blood alone is not enough. Trust is built through consistent actions, through responsibility, and through demonstrating that one values integrity over self-interest. Liam, despite having shared a bond with Natalie and being entrusted with handling the family estate, proved through his actions that he was not worthy of that trust. And once trust is broken, no apology or justification can fully repair the damage. It must be earned back through actions, through consistent effort, and through taking responsibility for past mistakes. Another key lesson here is that money is not the root of all evil, but unchecked greed and recklessness are. Liam's decisions were not just reckless. They were fueled by a deep-seated desire to get rich quickly, without putting in the work, without thinking of the long-term consequences. The farm was not just land, it was a legacy, a symbol of their grandfather's lifelong dedication and sacrifice. But Liam only saw it as a transaction, a quick sale, a way to obtain easy money. And in doing so, he completely disregarded its true value. This is a lesson so many people fail to learn in life. Real success is not about acquiring wealth overnight, it is about patience, strategy, and knowing what truly holds value. Quick money often disappears just as fast as it comes, especially when acquired without wisdom. Liam's desperation led him to gamble not only his inheritance but also his future. And worse, he allowed himself to be manipulated by others, by Olivia, by criminals like the Salvatore Group, because he was blinded by the allure of easy wealth. The pursuit of money is not wrong, but when it comes at the cost of integrity, family, and security, it is a dangerous path that almost always leads to ruin. There is also an important lesson about the weight of responsibility and the price of ignorance. Being given authority over something, whether it is a family estate, a business, or even a personal opportunity, is a privilege, not a right. Liam was given the role of executor because, on paper, he seemed like the logical choice. But having a title does not mean one is capable of handling the responsibility that comes with it. Throughout history and in everyday life, we see countless examples of people who are handed power but lack the wisdom or discipline to wield it properly. And in many cases, like Liam, they misuse it, either out of greed, arrogance, or sheer incompetence. He didn't understand the weight of what he was given, and instead of seeking guidance or making responsible choices, he treated the estate like his personal piggy bank. This is a reminder that ignorance is not an excuse. When we are entrusted with something valuable, whether it is a leadership position, a financial investment, or even just another person's trust, we must take the time to understand what it means to handle that responsibility well. Failing to do so does not absolve us of the consequences. A particularly powerful lesson that emerges from this story is that people do not truly change unless they are forced to face the consequences of their actions. For years, Liam had made bad decisions and was never held accountable. He made risky investments, lived beyond his means, and believed that he could always find a way to fix things. And to some extent, he had always been bailed out, whether by family, luck, or sheer circumstance. But this time, there was no escape. He had to face the full weight of his mistakes, losing his rights to the estate, watching Olivia abandon him, realizing that he was no longer in control. And only then, when he had nothing left to hide behind, did he begin to change. In life, we often see people repeating the same destructive patterns because they have never truly been forced to reckon with their mistakes. They make excuses, they justify their actions, and they refuse to take accountability. But true growth does not come from avoiding consequences, it comes from owning up to them, feeling their full impact, and making the choice to be different moving forward. Another lesson this story teaches is that not all second chances are given freely, sometimes, they must be earned. By the end, Liam comes back to the farm, humbled, stripped of his former arrogance. He does not ask for forgiveness outright, instead, he offers to help. And that is key. Forgiveness, redemption, and second chances do not come simply because someone apologizes. They come when someone actively works to right their wrongs. Natalie could have shut the door in his face. She had every right to. But she saw something different in him, not just regret, but the willingness to take action. In life, we are often faced with people who have wronged us, who have betrayed our trust. And sometimes those people will try to make amends. But words alone are meaningless. If someone truly wants to change, they must show it through their actions. And if we choose to give second chances, we must ensure they are earned, not handed out blindly. Finally, one of the most powerful takeaways from this story is that sometimes, the greatest battles are not against others, but against ourselves. Natalie's battle was not just against Liam, or even the Salvatore group. It was against her own doubts, her own fears, and the part of her that wondered if she was strong enough to fight. There were many moments when she could have walked away, when selling the farm would have been the easier choice, when letting Liam handle his own downfall would have been justified. But she didn't. She fought. Not just for the land, not just for her grandfather's legacy, but for herself. Because standing your ground, fighting for what you believe in, even when it seems impossible, that is what true strength looks like. In life, we all face battles that test us in ways we never expected. Some battles are external, against people, against unfair systems, against forces that seem too powerful to defeat. But the hardest battles are always the ones we fight within ourselves. The battle to stay true to our values. The battle to choose courage over fear. The battle to become the kind of person we can be proud of. In the end, this story is about more than just legal battles or financial struggles. It is about resilience, integrity, and the choices that define us. It is about knowing when to let go and when to fight, about understanding that mistakes do not define us, what we do after them does. It is about realizing that sometimes, winning is not about defeating others, but about standing firm in who we are and what we believe in. And above all, it is about recognizing that in life, our greatest power does not come from money or titles or inheritance, it comes from the strength of our character. Subscribe now and turn on the bell so you never miss a story. Let's get started.